So, food and nutrition, and I'll just be stating up front, I'm not a nutritionist. However, I have been blessed with chronic digestive issues pretty much my entire life. So, I've explored a lot. Um, and there's certain things that I can definitely say just because of the therapies that I've trained in. But over my, let's say, especially I think about 15 years, that I've really gone as deep as I've been able to with foods for myself. I've gone through everything from exclusion diets to exploring blood type diets and all sorts of stuff. But ultimately, what I found is that there is no sort of typical diet that's necessarily good for me, and maybe there isn't one for you either. And what really helped me was learning to listen to my body. um, and that there's a balance with everything. So I'd like to enjoy life. So whilst there's certain foods and drinks that my body doesn't dig, I do really enjoy it. And then to me, it's about taking responsibility for action and consequence. So if I do have certain things, I want it to be on my terms, ideally. That it's not because of some addictive, compulsive behavior. But ultimately, I try to eat a balanced diet, and whatever that balanced diet is for me, it might be completely different to you. So this is not about me saying what one should not, what one should or shouldn't eat or drink, really. But when it comes to diet, there's a few sort of very typical things I have come across though, that I want to share as some insights. So usually heavily processed foods are not good for anybody. So as much as possible, you can try and avoid that. Besides that, then there's some culprits that could be behind various physical symptoms that people may experience, such as wheat, dairy, and sugar. And interestingly enough, from a Chinese medicine perspective, those types of food are damp forming, and they tend to make people sluggish, and there'll be all sorts of other symptoms that could be associated with it. And that's actually a view of food that I find really useful. And there's a friend of mine who's a Chinese medicine practitioner, and I'm gonna add a link to their page so that you can explore some of the things that they've shared from that perspective, because it's quite interesting. So besides that, really, it's about balance to me, and that's the main message that I would just want to put across here. But just be aware that our body, our mind, our energy levels, everything is really affected by what we put into our bodies. It may sound so obvious, but if you haven't had that realization yet, it can be a bit about, oh, duh, of course. So just be mindful about it if you can. Buy good quality foods if you can as well. Treat your body with it. What was the last thing I wanted to say? Oh yeah. So in terms of digestive health, one of the big lessons I learned is that it's massively impacted by our emotional well-being. In many ways, this is why I did not start with food and nutrition first. But one of the big turning points for my chronic digestive issues was back in 2016. Although I've been doing a lot of things to manage and maintain things, this was at a point where I was digging into changing subconscious beliefs and emotional responses to certain triggers. Like the big one for food at that time was about anger. I was essentially rejecting anger as a valid human emotion. So what did I do instead? Well, suppress, repress, certainly not expressing it in any healthy manner. So that clearly did go to my gut. That's my direct experience. You don't have to believe me, but that is my direct experience. So other clues I had beforehand, and maybe this resonates with you, is if you notice how your digestive health varies with your stress levels. That's a nice compass to go by. Because I remember when my first realization happened, and it was back in Norway. The Norwegian diet is very heavy on wheat and dairy and all these things that actually were a problem for me. Um, but whilst on holiday, I could actually eat something that was very heavy on the wheat and dairy, and it was completely fine. And that's when the realization came, like, oh, yeah, because I'm actually really relaxed. And I could have those things, or at least sort of on occasion, not cereal for breakfast every day, and then bread for lunch, and then pasta for dinner, for example, or pizza. So, balance. So, figure out what works for you, but I've given you some general tips and hints here. Hopefully, that's useful. And if you want to share something that you've learned that could be useful to me or anybody else, that'd be awesome. And I hope that this message finds you well.